he ended up, yeah. I'm like, you just saved your own life, you know? It's crazy. Don't put that on. Don't put that on. But I mean, it did. You know what's sad? So they pulled it out, and they're like, oh, you know, so-and-so's extubated. I'm like, no way. They don't extubate anybody. I'm like, that's so weird. Here it turns out he extubated himself. And now, he's fine. He's home now. This was just a couple days ago. But, you know what's sad is that he thinks we saved his life. You know what I mean? So he's like, you saved me. And I couldn't, you know, I don't have the heart to be like, no, man, you saved yourself. You have like 9 lives. Because had he not pulled that out, he would definitely be dead. For sure. They don't extubate anyone.
Here's the problem. Not a single patient here, since this thing began, has been discharged or successfully extubated.
I asked the nursing supervisor for a sitter for the guy that pulled his tube out, because when they're waking up, they can be extra, I should say, where they need a little bit of extra attention. And I asked her for a sitter, and she told me that I didn't utilize all my resources first, which was Haldol, all the psych drugs to like chemically, you know, put him to bed.
Your Florida hospital was literally having to furlough people?
Yes. What was happening is, obviously, they shut down all elective procedures. But they were also waiting for the wave. They called it the wave. So we were preparing, and we were in tiers based on our experience. So we were tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And I was tier 1 because I have the, you know, military trauma experience, ICU experience, so on and so forth. So I was working, you know, throughout the hospital, training in other units, cross-training. Ultimately, it was to get hours. You know,
it was what?
It was to get hours.
Yeah.
You know, this is what the hospitals were doing. They're like, okay, we're going to give our employees hours this way to cross-train them for when the wave hits. And then that wave would get pushed back another week, and then it get pushed back another week. And the units that we were floating to, like cross-training, they're like, what are you doing here? We don't need you. You know, so I felt like I was wasting my time and taking up other people's time that were trying to get hours too. And this opportunity presented itself, and I took it.
Do you think that the reason you never got a COVID wave in Florida was because of any of this lockdown? Or, I mean, I know you're not an epidemiologist, but what do you think was going on?
I live right by, and that was like worldwide news. People were at the beach. I was one of those people at the beach with my kids. Sunlight, it's vitamin D, it's good for your immunity. Fresh air, salt water, all these things are really good for anyone's, you know, immune system. You have to be out. Mental health, you know, we were all at the beach.
And so people, if there was a lot of transmission going on.
Wouldn't you think our hospitals would be flooded? They were not. I'm right at the beach. I'm right by the beach. Didn't happen.
Because the lockdowns happened after all that, and
it was spring break. You know, the beaches were packed. I mean, there's people from all over the world. Like tons of New Yorkers live by us.
What do you, if you, I know I'm asking you to speculate here, because you really feel there is a new disease called COVID-19, do you feel that that's the case, or do you think that this is, I mean, I know there's a lot of mislabeling, and I know all that, but there really is something new, right? And
yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think it, you know, places like New York got, well, okay, we can see that what you were describing at Elmhurst was that they were packing people in together. And so that would cause spread. But why do you think a place like New York got hit so much harder than other places?
I thought about that already. what I found is that before this happened, because it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, I'm sitting at home, I'm waiting for work, I'm stressing out. A lot of my friends are doing the same. So I'm like digging and like, why is New York, like what is it, because there's that many people crunched in together? But ultimately what I found is that the hospitals here were already struggling. I think they shut down like multiple hospitals because they couldn't afford to keep them open. So that made sense to me, even though I didn't want it to make sense. You know, like there's really no other rhyme or reason, because like.
But do you think we really do have many more cases, regardless of whether or not, you know, people went to the hospital?
I think they're forced cases. I mean, sure, people are coming in with COVID, whatever that may be. It is something. But not everyone, but they're admitting these people. That's the difference between New York hospitals or these, you know, Michigan, you know, the states that were, you know, hit the hardest, quote. They're admitting these patients as possible COVID, calling it COVID.
Or rule out COVID.
Rule out COVID, when they maybe just had a little congestion.
If there was something you would want to tell everyone in the country and everywhere else, what one last thing, what would it be? I would say this is the one thing that I've had a struggle with, is if someone like me or anybody is trying to tell you something that might go against your beliefs, like just listen, you know, like really just take it in, and instead of jumping on it, like think on it for a night or a day and like look into this stuff, because, and ask people about it. Like, not every nurse is going to have the same experience. A med-surg nurse that's on the floor, even in my own hospital, has not had the same experience as the ICU nurses have. And once I sit down and explain it to them, it all makes sense. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. We see that because we'll send them to your, you know, so just think about it, you know, and be respectful, and like no one wants to put themselves in a situation like this, you know, and it's really hard. And this is the reason that a lot more people and nurses are afraid, because people are so quick to, you know, defend something that they don't really understand. What are you referring to in particular? Like this protocol or what?
Like I referred to earlier, if you tell people like something enough over and over, like the media was telling people, you know, vents, and then you say as a nurse, no vents, you know, it's not a good, it's not a good position to be in, because I'm going against what the government says. But does the government really have everybody's best interest in mind? You know, are they thinking of, you know, the 57-year-old grandma that, you know, didn't have to die, or the 37-year-old that was totally fine when he walked into the emergency room and he didn't have to die? You know, are they thinking about, you know, maybe the guy that had a drug problem that didn't have to be vented, but he saved his own life? I don't have anything to gain. I have everything to lose by sharing what I'm sharing right now, you know, but so be it. You know, I think it's important that these families get closure, and I hope that someday they'll be able to, you know, hold them accountable for what they did.
A few days after we recorded this interview, Erin began to feel that her time at Elmhurst was drawing to a close. Her vocal questioning of hospital procedure and her efforts to get the word out on social media were getting noticed. She made this recording on what ended up being her last day at the hospital.
I've been taking care of a patient for like a week right now, and this is my and I called him. And he's been doing great. He had a trach put in and he's been doing great. He's been talking and or communicating with me. He's telling me, laughing at my jokes, and talked to his kids on FaceTime a couple days ago. And I told his kids that he was doing fine. And he was. And today I was giving him, and they came in and they told me that I need to leave the room and I have to give report to somebody else. They took me from that unit and they put me in the emergency room, and they don't need me there, but they put me there, and I'm not even there 20 minutes. I'm not even there 20 minutes and I hear a code being called in my room that I was just left. And it's him. And he was fine. He was fine. I don't understand. Nothing makes sense. Why would they take me out of his room and put me in the ED? And then not 20 minutes later, he's dead. It doesn't make sense. Did they kill him? He was my one patient that was gonna live. He shouldn't have died. I don't know what they did to him. Something's not right.